So before we can get good at PowerShell, we should probably look at the benefits of PowerShell. Now, some of the big benefits of PowerShell is it's designed in a way that once you know how to run a couple sets of commandlets, you can pretty much figure out how to run any commandlet. And what I mean by that is if we run our net start command on our computer here, you can see that we get a list of all of these services that are currently started. The question is, how do you interact with this output? How do you change it to stopped commands or services? There's a lot of things that you might have to Google, and that's just quite confusing to try to keep up with how to do that, especially when you have thousands of other commands that you might need to learn. The benefit with PowerShell is once you learn how to do it once, you kind of know how to do it again. So let me show you what I mean by that. We're going to run a get service commandlet. Now, if you look here, we have a verb and a noun, and this is what is going to be the common pattern across our PowerShell journey. So I'm going to run get service, and you can see that we have three outputs here. We have status, name, and display name. Those are properties. We can utilize that to call out each property that we want to. And what I mean by that is if I take get service like this, and I put a period, and I type status, and I run this, now I'm only receiving the output for the status property. Let's say I want to see just the display name. I can type in display name like this and run this. And now I have all of our display names. And it's beautifully organized. It's separate away. I was able to just filter it out and create this nice list that I can interact with. Unlike NetStart, where I would have to figure out specific ways to query that data. Now, you're just looking at this and you're probably wondering, well, what's the point of doing this? We're able to now iterate over each item in the list. So what I mean by that is if we do a for each, we'll say service. We can name it anything we want. But for this, we're going to name it just $service in, and we're going to do a get service display name. Let's go ahead and make this a useful output for, say, humans like you and I. So we'll do a write output, and we'll say the service called $service was found on this server. All right, let's go ahead and run it. So we'll take this and we'll run it. As you can see, we are able to go through each service in our list and iterate over it and utilize as we need to. Now, this is great and all, but this is more informative. What are some of the benefits of doing this? So let's go ahead and take our get service again and drop it down here. And let's say that we want to interact with this service right here. We'll use our Windows Update service, which this is its name. Since we're working with PowerShell, we know that we're working with verbs. We're not going to stray away from service because we're still interacting with the service. So let's say that we want to work with this Windows Update service. I'm just going to go here and type in the name. And you'll see that I only receive output based off of this specific object. Now, if I want to stop this service, I would use stop. If I want to start this service, I would use start. Now, what I mean is we're just going to run start hyphen service. And we can put the service name right here. And now if we run this, the service should be in a starting state. So let's go ahead and do a get service. And we will run it using the service name, which is our Windows Update name. And now we can see that the service is in fact in a running state. But then we've decided maybe we should stop that service. So now we will use a stop service, paste in that name, run stop service. And now let's go ahead and run a get service again. And let's see, will it be running or will it be in a stopping state? As you can see, we're in a stopped state. So utilizing PowerShell, you're going to see that we're going to use start, get, stop, remove, there's a lot of variables that eventually you'll find that you pretty much kind of know all the variables. And you'll get to the point where it's new local user, new group, new AD, new DNS, new... You'll notice that it's that simple. It's that easy. And the more we go over these examples, the easier it's going to be. And I promise that as confusing as it might look right now, it's just going to get better the more we work together. Now, we've done a great job getting the service started, getting the service stopped, but what are some more advancements that we can do? And it's okay if you don't memorize all this. This is more or less to show you the benefits, and then we'll go over later what you can do in more detail. So let's do a get service, and let's say that we want to get a list of all the services that are running. The problem is, if I look now, I got some stopped, I got some running, and it's just, it's everywhere. So I only want to find out what services are currently in a running state. So I'm going to use a pipe, and that allows me to take the output of get service and just stuff it right into the next commandlet. So we're going to say where object, and we're going to put property status. And we got this property name because if we scroll all the way back up to the top, we can see status listed here. And we want to get a list of all the services that say, in this example, let's just go with stop state. So we're going to say is equal to stopped. So let's go ahead and run it, see what we get. Now, where's all the running services? You won't see them because we said that we want to only see services that are in a stop state. If we wanted to see the services in a running state, then we would simply change this from stopped to running and run it again. And here's our output of all the services that are currently running. Now, there's a lot of commandlets that can help us with filtering. There's about 4 to 5 that we will use quite often in almost every time we need to filter out our output. Now, for this simplicity, to show you how cool we can get things, let's say that we decided that we don't want to see the name because the name's a little confusing. And I don't know what BFE stands for, but I do know base filtering engine. That makes a lot more sense to me. Let's kind of simplify this to make it a little bit easier for us to read. So we can do something called a select object. Now, select object is going to make it where we can choose which of these objects we want to work with. We don't want name anymore, but we want display name. So we can do just like where object, we can do a property. Now, what property do we want to work with? I'm going to say, let's go ahead and go with display name. So we'll choose display name. Now, let's go ahead and run it, and let's see what it looks like. Do you know what the output's going to look like? Well, this looks kind of familiar, right? We got a list of just the display name. Now, this is good, but I don't really know what the status is. If I'm trying to utilize this as a way to show that things are working, things aren't working, I'll probably want to add a little bit more data. So let's go ahead and add another property. Let's go ahead and add another property, and we'll add the status property. And let's go ahead and run it. And now, just like that, we are able to see the display name and the status. We were able to change the output simply by piping and using our where objects and our select objects. Now, the goal here is for you to not memorize all this. It's going to seem like a lot of information, and that's fine. What we'll do is we're going to go over this a lot more in depth. We're going to go over filtering. We're going to use the where objects. We're going to show you guys how to count how many services are in a running state, how many are in a stop state. We're going to show you how to iterate over it, how to take advantage of using additional logic that's just going to make your scripts so cool that you're going to be proud to show them off to your team. And we're going to teach you how to use the validation steps to ensure that your content is written correctly, that it's going to be reliable, hopefully until they for years to come, or maybe the next PowerShell update. But anyways, hope you appreciate our content. Hit subscribe, and we will see you next video.